You're listening to Through Our Lens with the Disabled and Nondisabled Alliance, or DANA. We're a club at Sac State for disabled students, staff, and their allies who discuss and educate each other on disability topics/issues, advocate for the disabled community, and hang out together. So we want to be more recognizable to Sac State. So please join the conversation by following and messaging us on Instagram at Dana at Sac State. It's DANA at Sac State. Hi everyone, welcome to the 4th episode of Through Our Lens with the Disabled and Nondisabled Alliance. My name is Brian Tao and I am one of the officers and the host of this podcast. Our topic today is going to be about disability employment, like should you mention your disability through the interview process, and we're going to talk about the pay gap for people living with disabilities. As always, it's going to be a very free-form format, so expect a conversation with many tangents, just like how a real conversation would go. And as always, I'm here with the president and founder, William and Rian.
Hello.
Hello. I'm eating pasta.
Yeah, it's called pasta time. That's cool. Yeah. To kind of get us started, I wanted to talk about like our work background, and I can start first. So I started my first job last semester, so a couple months ago, and I was a peer mentor for first year students. And I was a teacher assistant for one of my old classes that I took. And that was like really school related. So like I didn't really have to ask like for accommodations in a way. And like I didn't have to ask because it was online as well. So I didn't have to like worry, like, do you have a good table for me to use? But now for this semester, I am a student assistant with CAL FIRE, the Department of Forestry and Fire Prevention. And I work with fire prevention grants mostly. But like that's like a state, like kind of like student assistant position. So that gives me experience like with the state. And like something that I found really interesting is that they have like stand-up desks. So I don't have to worry about like the height of the table at all. I could just put it as high as I want. Because like for like school, most like desks aren't the right level as I want it. It's not like on like around my chest area. It's usually just like around my stomach area, which is really can be really uncomfortable because I do have to lean forward to kind of be in a good position. But with CAL FIRE, you don't really have to worry about that. They have stand-up desks. It's easy. So that's kind of like my work background. I don't have that much. I have at least a year, but yeah.
Yeah, I have not held an actual job before. I've tried getting one within the past year and it's not working, and I'm starting to believe that this whole worker shortage thing that everybody's complaining about, that employers aren't desperate enough to hire a person in a wheelchair. I was kind of hoping that would be in my favor, like, oh, you're desperate for workers? Pick me, right? Like, this is perfect opportunity. You're desperate, right? And then they're like, we're not that desperate, it's like, okay, fine, be that way. And so I haven't gotten any callbacks, and I've kind of stopped looking because I'm just not the right time anymore. But I did hold 2 student internship positions in my senior year of high school. The first was a library assistant in our high school's library. That was a lot of fun, but it was also a lot of work. And I do think it counts as like customer service experience because you had to man the front desk by yourself, answer the phone calls, which was terrifying, and, resort and organize all the bookshelves. You kind of got assigned a different section each month because there was one student per class period, so there were only like 6 of us. We all kind of worked together as a team, but kind of on our own as well. Like, we met up every month and organized things and passed tasks off to each other and communicated pretty frequently. We also did our own book displays every month as well. And you can bet I did several disability-centered ones. Which was interesting because then I kind of saw how little good disability related books there were in the library, because a lot of the stuff was like really outdated ableist sciencey type books, like health science type books, and they were like very outdated, like from the 80s, outdated. um, but then I did find some good books to display, and the other job, quote unquote job, that I had was a student assistant position in my local elementary school. I was about to say high school, and I'm like, no, that's not the right elementary school, local elementary school. And I worked with this one class, fourth grade class, for the whole year. Yes, I still remember you guys. If you are listening to this, it was years ago, so they're probably in high school by now. And that was a lot of fun. I learned what it was like to be a teacher, and I kind of got to test different ways I could navigate the classroom and accommodate my own disability within that setting. I did a lot of grading and spelling tests for the teacher, and I did a few lessons. It was a very interesting experience that expanded my horizons. But unfortunately, as good of a fit that position was for me, you can't really find a paid position that's the same thing. Because if there were, I would have leapt on that opportunity right away. I miss being a student assistant in the classroom. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. William, can you start?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, that absolutely does count as customer service experience. Tout that in whatever future endeavors you happen to find. I found out at this late stage that I'm a couple years older than these two jokers, so my resume turns out to be a little longer.
Are you? What?
I'm gonna be turning 24 pretty soon here.
Oh, I didn't know that. I guess to put things in perspective, Rihanna me is 21. Wow. I didn't know that.
So yeah, I've worked. I did like an internship with the city of San Diego before I moved away from there. It was pretty untoutable for the most part. They kind of just had an unpaid intern, and they gave busy work to him. I've done plenty of work at like grocery stores just to pay the bills, basically. At one point during one of my stints there, I worked as a bookkeeper, which was a little bit more specialist. It was like a lateral move pay wise, but took a couple weeks of dedicated training, and thereafter it was interesting. And through all of that experience at the grocery store, the eye thing, the visual disability, was very much like front and center to the experience. Especially when you're doing bookkeeping, you gotta really exercise that control over your focal point if you have nystagmus, and it slows you down and it makes you make little mistakes, and that can be really frustrating. In terms of working at the rest of the grocery store, it's more or less the same deal. You have to understand a lot of very small visual details very quickly, and I can't do that. So I was never very good at being a grocery store employee, whatever department they stuck me in, because all of it required the same sort of visually intensive skill set. I moved on from there to being in the student government at my community college, because I had at that point saved up enough money to get away with that kind of thing. And that was much less ableist, I found, because it was just you could take work a bit more at your own pace, but that was not a paid position at all. And I consider this day the work I did there to be generally good work. I did things like helping to revamp the constitution of that organization, which I think it came away as a stronger document as a direct result of the edits I recommended to it. But then and I basically moved straight on from that to working in a grocery store again, same deal as before, and then to and now currently I'm a resident assistant with student housing here at Sacramento State. I work with the private contractor that's contracted with Sacramento State, Graystar. We manage the Upper East Side lofts currently and the Hornet Commons thereafter. So it's still a very much a private company, and it still feels like a private company. But it's much closer to the sort of, state kind of, and I say state like it's a virtue in itself, but the non the nonprofit seeking kind of work that I prefer to do. It's still very much, of the kind of work that the visual disability comes into, but not in the debilitating way that it normally does. It just requires a little bit more effort. So it remains a disabling factor, but it not in this particular job, because I can do things like take extra time to write and edit incident reports and stuff. It doesn't work out to be especially debilitating. But yeah, that's kind of my my work experience. It's a little longer.
Yeah, it's a lot longer. Yeah, but I think that's a really good thing. Like we have like 3 different individuals here who had different kind of work experience. One person with some intern experience, and a person that just started like their jobs, and the experienced person. That's good. And since we've been through like a lot of interviews, that like I want to ask this question: should you like mention your disability at any point? Should it be at the start, beginning, end?
No.
I think based on the notes so far that we're unified on this point. Nope. Because they like, and I'll let you guys go into why from your own perspective, because I think I have a bigger economic point.
Sure.
Okay. My main point with saying no is that there's no way to reliably prove that they did not hire you because you are disabled. Because if you tell them in the interview phase, they could give a million other reasons for not hiring you that have nothing to do with your disability. And they could say that when in fact it was due to your disability. But you have no way of proving that during that stage, because there are so many other factors at play. Now, if they hired you and then fired you as soon as they found out that you were disabled, or as soon as you started requesting accommodations, that has a lot of evidence left behind by it. It's a very clear, straightforward incident, and it's a lot easier to protect yourself with the law in that situation. In the interview phase, no, you don't have enough evidence to use the law to protect yourself, because the law does state that you can't hire people based on their disability or lack thereof, right? But in a lot of cases, there's no way to prove whether or not they did, so that's why I say if you can afford to hide it for that long, I would get your foot in the door first, get hired first, and then start telling them. But even then, it's such a huge risk to start disclosing your disability and your needs after you get hired, because firing people after they do disclose that sort of thing is still a unfortunately common occurrence. So do try to keep it on the down low for as long as you can, and at the very least, after you get hired, maybe don't immediately be like, hey, I'm disabled, kind of ease into it and make sure that it's safe to tell them that you need these accommodations first. And if it's not, then I would start looking for another job as soon as possible, because you will not be able to maintain that guise of non-disabled long enough. It's taxing to pretend that you're something that you're not. So if you get hired and you feel like the workplace is not a safe place for you as a disabled person, I would start looking for another job as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's something that I would agree with. So for me, I have like a lot of experience with interviews and like failing at them. So like I guess like each failure is kind of like a test run. So sometimes I ask like different questions at the end. And I usually ask like what kind of accommodations are available like for me if I need it. I'll just yeah, I think I'll just ask because it's like a good vibe, something like that. But yeah, and they usually just say that we'll just work with you as best as we can and just let us know what you need. So, but like, yeah, I don't think it's a really like a question to kind of ask like in the beginning during the interview process. You should just ask like after you get the job, because like once you get the job, they'll like find a way to make it more accommodating. And the type of jobs that I apply for is like internships for like city departments, state departments. So like they can't even like discriminate in the first place. But I think you should just mention it at the end because it just helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the thing like being alluded to, in addition to what else, is that it's true. It remains true what we mentioned like last time at one point about like housing and disability, where like the places don't conform to ADA standards. For the same reason, like you wouldn't expect to get hired as a person with a particular like job relevant, and I'll say that I'll expand on that later, but like job relevant impairment,
Mhm.
because tort law has no teeth for if you're poor. You
Yeah.
have no recourse in any realistic way.
Sorry to interrupt. I just got like a new like something that I should say. So
Yeah.
like when you're in the interview, like what they're looking for is like your kind of experience. Are you right? Are you the right fit for the job? They're not looking for are you disabled or not. So like there's really no reason why you should say it because that's not what they're looking for. Okay, that's it. That's my spiel.
It's also illegal to straight up ask, do you have a
Mhm.
disability? What is your disability? Stuff like that. It should, if they ask about that, it should only be related to the job itself, like actually required for the job. Like, do you have um like a medical condition that would, impair you from this job? Like if you have, a condition where if you have narcolepsy, right, and you need to be a truck driver who's on the road 24/7, like that is not a good fit. And they do need to vet and screen candidates to make sure that, they aren't hiring someone that will crash the vehicle, right? But at the same time, narcolepsy doesn't necessarily mean that you will crash the vehicle. It's just a matter of like, what are your specific circumstances that you have to deal with for the job. And that's why asking about it is such a minefield, because it is against the law to ask specifics that are not relevant to the job. And you can make a case either way for a lot of these. But yeah, and there are questions that are fishing for information that is illegal for them to ask outright. Um, like one another question that's illegal is like asking how old are you? They aren't allowed to ask that, but they are allowed to ask, are you over the age of 18? Or if you're working at a bar, are you over the age of 21? Right. But yeah, it's a minefield with the questions, and you do have a right to say, I'm not going to answer that, or to avoid the question if you notice that they just asked something that they're not allowed to ask.
Yeah, but I mean, is there any like if you were the interviewer in that situation, and you asked a question to which the interviewee straight up said, "I'm not going to answer that," you might lose that resume. And that's the thing. Like, there's even if we assume that like tort law is actionable in these cases, and I again don't think it is, because people don't have this. If they need the job, they don't have money. Um, even if we assume that there's still nothing stopping the interviewer from like fishing for that.
Hi everyone. So the other part of this episode got corrupted. I really wish we could have talked more about the paid gap, but it's got corrupted. Sucks. But next time it's gonna be way better. So right now we're just gonna do some announcements right now. So thank you so much for listening. Please check us out on our socials, blog series on keyinstitute.com, and our podcast. We release episodes every Monday at 12 p.m. Our second club meeting will be on this Friday, February 18th at 6:30 p.m. with Dr. Eric Luvis, where he will talk about the benefits of recreational therapy and his time at Shanners Hospital. We also have our schedule up on our social media. If you missed anything or the previous episodes and club meetings, check us out on YouTube where we post our recordings there. Again, thank you so much. Bye everyone. Where's the ramp?
Bye.
Where is You're listening to Through Our Lens with the Disabled and Nondisabled Alliance at Sacramento State, a club, organization, whatever, for disabled students, staff, and their allies to discuss and educate each other about disability-related topics, advocate on behalf of disabled students and the community, and to hang out together and just be a community.
So we want to be more recognized multi-sex state. So please join the conversation by following and messaging us on Instagram at Dana@SexState. It's DANA@SexState.